The state of the world, the economy, and of course, the housing market. Well, a lot of people are saying we're in unprecedented times. So let me break down what this means because we are seeing some differences in the data that we haven't seen in years past. So this is the Chicago real estate market update for fall of 2023. So let's dive into today's video so you can know exactly how the current state of the Chicago real estate market impacts you and your lifestyle, your real estate goals, and ultimately what makes the most sense for you and how can you decipher and interpret in order to gain clarity and confidence as you go out there and make real estate decisions. So my goal today is to break this down exactly like that for you so that you can really get a look under the hood of what's happening here locally in Chicago. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jordan Pyle, your go-to Chicago real estate agent. My team and I have been servicing the city of Chicago for the last 10 years, and we'd be absolutely honored to help you with your move to Chicago or your real estate goals at large. So if you have any questions about the market, you're looking to start the process to buy or sell a home in 2024, we would love to get that conversation going with you. So feel free to just text the number on the screen, and myself or a team member will get in touch with you within 24 hours. Also, before you go, check out all the free resources down in the description. And if you want to schedule a real estate strategy call, there's a link down there for that as well. So let's get into it. And lastly, if this has been helpful, please do us a favor and comment, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you. So some of the things we're gonna cover before we jump into my screen here and I show you the raw, hard data is we're gonna talk about the data, different components of that, new listings, under contracts, closed sales, average sales prices, etc. And we're also going to break down what this means for you as a buyer, what this means specifically for you as a seller, and what this means for you as if you are an investor. And so we're gonna be working with those three kind of subsets. So I'm gonna summarize my general thoughts along the way, but more so at the end of the video as it pertains to you in one of those three different types of buyer or seller profiles. And so first thing we wanna do is we wanna jump into the data because I think the data paints the picture. So let's jump over into my screen and we will walk through some of the things that we're seeing, some of the metrics that I like to take a look at to really determine what is the current state of the market, not just what you hear in the news, but what, like I said, are the raw, hard facts that actually paint an accurate picture. So let's get into it. Now that we're over into the system over here, and this is called InfoSparks. This is a resource that we as realtors here have access to through the local MLS, so the multiple listing service. So just to define kind of the parameters around what this data is coming from. Well, this is a custom template that I've set up, which is basically the north side of the city. So it's gonna be primarily the markets that I work on a most frequent basis. And so these are neighborhoods, not all of them, but just for example, like Lincoln Park, Lakeview, Bucktown, Wicker Park, River North, Streeterville, Gold Coast, Logan Square, West Town, a lot of those type of neighborhoods on like the north, mainly the north side of the city and then like the surrounding areas. So take that for what it is. It's not a full comprehensive Chicago land because I operate in a certain market and I want to have the most relevant and niche data for these particular markets that I work. So north side of the city, all price ranges, all property classes, right? So you have single families, 2 to 4 units, commercial land. We're actually going to change this, or no, we're going to leave that how it is. All property types, all construction types. That incorporates new construction and resale. Instead of all seller types, we're just doing traditional. So this is going to take out any of the REOs or the short sales, and then any size square footage of home. So this is going to give you kind of the general data here. So I like to go to 5 years here as we're framing this for you. And let me just change the view slightly here so that we can get a little bit closer to it. So I hope that doesn't block up the screen. So the first subset of data I like to look at is new listings. And so when we jump into new listings, you'll see here on the time horizon, I switched it to 5 years. So the line on the far left of the screen is 5 years ago. And the most recent line on the far right is basically the last full month, which was October of 2023. So as we see here, if we're gonna look at the rolling 12 months, so we wanna understand what is the current amount of new listings in October of 2023 versus October of 2022. So 1 year difference. So when we see that there's 25,729 new listings for this subset of data currently right now. A year ago, if we go to October of 2022, it was 34,448. So really what we're seeing right now, based on my notes, is we're about a 25% decrease and the number of new listings on the market, which makes a ton of sense because inventory has been the main constraint in the market. And so right now, because of the situation with interest rates, people kind of feeling locked into their current properties because if they trade in the market, they're giving up a low interest rate that they probably secured, over the last 3 to 5 years, likely sub 4%, to trade up in a market where current interest rates are hovering around 7.7% for a 30-year fixed conventional rate. And so that is keeping a lot of people on the sidelines. Those properties are not entering the market. That's why you're seeing right here, if you look on the right side, a 25.3% decrease in the number of new listings. So if we look just a little bit with more of a fine-tooth comb and we go monthly, this allows you to see like, okay, how does this fluctuate through the seasons of the year? So basically right here, we're at 1,947 homes. The last time we were at that level of homes, as you can see here, was January. So right at the start of the year, and right now we're just shy of where we were at the start of the year. As you can see here though, and I like to point out is, despite every year having ups and downs, these right here are usually the start of the year, the lows, and then every year you see this jump up. So, right here, this is 2021, you saw the jump up. Right here was 2020, you saw the jump up. And that's the seasonality of Chicago that you're seeing there. And so even though right now, I guess we would maybe call our Chicago real estate market more sluggish, typically we see seasonality come into play as soon as we get into the new year. So if I'm a buyer or a seller, specifically if I'm a seller, January 15th, roughly like a couple weeks into the year, is really the ideal time to list your property, because you're gonna see a flurry of activity, usually in the spring market, like late winter season, but early spring market here in Chicago. So that's the first subset of data I like to look at. The next one I like to look at is the under contract. So as we flip this over, we're gonna change this from monthly back to the rolling 12 months so we can compare year over year. So right now, under contract, so this is the number of agreements being had, right? People handshaking, coming to terms on contracts. That's what we're seeing here. So how many homes are going under sale, basically, or going under contract for sale? So October of 2023, 13,979. October 2022, 18,742. And as you look over here to the right, they crunched the math for us. It's a 25.4% decrease in the number of under contracts in October of 2023 versus October 2022. So literally this follows suit with new listings, 25% down year over year, right? And so what I want to point out here really quickly is something that is interesting. So right now, in terms of the number of under contracts, look at where the last time we had a similar amount of under contracts, May of 2020, right before the pandemic, like right when we were getting out of what was going to happen, and ultimately what ended up being this boom that you're seeing here in under contracts and just general real estate activity. But prior to the pandemic, which is this line far over here on the left, is a similar level, not quite. I mean, we are lower today than where we were then, but we're at a more similar level of where we were heading into the pandemic. And so that was a more balanced market. So my point here is, as you see this line kind of come down here and even out, and then as we zoom in a little bit closer, this is only 1 year of data now. And so you saw this come down, and now you're seeing it flatten out, right? So hopefully we're reaching a point of basically under contract is the amount of demand. Like that's the way I like to look at it. It's a lot of demand in the market. You're gonna have more under contracts, to match supply. So it unfortunately right now we have a supply and a demand issue, right? We have high interest rates, we have low supply, but we do ultimately have more buyers out there than the amount of homes that are actually for sale. So we're starting to see this go from a decrease though to a flattening out, which is something I like to see. So the next subset of data we're gonna jump into is closed sales. So this is a little bit further, more of a lag measure from under contracts, because those deals come together, and then ultimately how many of those are actually reaching the closing table. So if we look again back on your 5-year time horizon, you can see closed sales right now, October 2023, 13,929, October 2022, 19,723. So this is actually almost 30%, 29.4% down the number of closed sales year over year from this time last year. So again, market is slower, less real estate activities happening. But as we move into the next subset of data, this is really what's interesting, right? The market's slower, high interest rates. People are talking about the world falling apart, and we'll still see what's going to happen with all that. But then, like I said, 29.4% down on closed sales. And so let's just look at one more thing and then we'll finalize with sales price, which is really the interesting component. And the reason that I said the data is not lining up compared to how it should be lining up, which is ultimately why I'm calling this somewhat unprecedented. So the last one though I want to show you right here is month supply. And 5 years out, basically we're sitting at 3 months of inventory. This has been consistent, pretty much all through 2023. Again, constraint being lack of inventory, people not wanting to go into the market. The really majority of purchases this year, a lot of them happen to be first-time home buyers. So they didn't have a home to trade when they came into the market and took a home out of the market. They didn't have a home to trade. And the people that have the home to trade are the ones I was referencing earlier that have a sub 4% interest rate. And if they decide to move, they're giving that up ultimately and then buying in the same market with a high 7% interest rate. And so this is the kind of dichotomy in the situation right now and why it's a very unprecedented time. But month supply, a balanced market, we're at 3 months right now. A balanced market is anywhere between 4 and 7. And if you're under 4, you're basically a seller's market, meaning sellers have kind of the competitive edge in the market. And if you are over, let's just say 6, then typically that means there's an oversupply. So there's more homes there than the amount of demand that's in the market. We've been at 3%, even this is low, right? So even before the pandemic, we were sitting around 3.8, 4%, which again, I would consider more of that balanced market. So maybe what this is indicating here is we are more in a balanced market than we are in a bad or a good market or a booming market, such as the one we were in the last, 3-4 years, kind of nationwide here in the real estate market. All right, and to just finalize month supply, I know I didn't explain what that means. So essentially, if you're gonna take this subset of data and let's just say hypothetically, no new listings were to come to the market. So basically you put a stop on the amount of new listings that can come to the market. That inventory would last for 3 months. Not a lot of time. Obviously I said on anything between like 4 and 6 is a balanced market. So we're still in a seller's market. All right, the last thing we wanna look at here to round out the data subsection of this video is average sales price. So what are home values doing? Are they going up? Are they going down? And what I want to show you first is we're going to go out to that 5-year time horizon. As you can see, up and to the right with little dips here and there, but in general, home values go up and to the right, which is why you always want to buy real estate. So looking back year over year, 560,000 was basically the sales price, the average sales price in October of 2023. And going back to October 2022, 564,169, so 564. So this is actually 0.7% down. So home value is basically less than 1% down year over year, despite having record high interest rates, not record high, but for the time frame, let's just call it the last 5 to 10 years, we're at the highest interest rate level that we've been. Interest rates across the board and specifically mortgage rates. As I mentioned, I think today, the 30-year fixed Fannie or conventional product essentially is at 7.7%. But what you're going to notice if we zoom this in from the 5-year to the 1-year is ever since June, home values have been going up. So we had high interest rates during this time, we had low inventory, and that's really what's creating this either stabilization of the market or even an increase in sales prices. And so even though you have all this information out there, home values are still going up. So if you buy today, you have a good chance of your property being worth more in the next 5 years or in 5 years, right? If you continue to wait and try to figure out when our interest rate is going to be lower, our home value is going to come down, well, all of the indicators don't lead us to believe that they're coming down, right? And so that's kind of a good transition into what this means for you as a buyer, as a seller, and as an investor. So we're going to get out of my screen here. We're going to just get back to the video, and we'll talk a little bit about how this actually applies to your life. All right, so I hope the screen share there was helpful. I think that for a lot of people, especially people like myself that are visual learners, really seeing the tracks or the charts and seeing the different data points on that really tells a story and really, like I said, gives some clarity into the market, and it can seemingly be a very complex thing, but the data and the proof is in the pudding, right? And so what this means for you as a buyer, as a seller, or as an investor, let's start with the buyers, right? So if you're a buyer in late 2023 real estate market, which is when we're filming this video. This is actually November 2nd. Let's talk about what this means for you. So don't expect interest rates to come down. I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest kind of news headline and reality in the market is affordability is at an all-time low. Not only do you have, taxes higher than they were the year before, and every year those get more expensive, but you have the ability to borrow being at a lot higher clip. And so as I mentioned a couple of times in this video, for you to purchase a property today, going the 30-year fixed route, let's just say you do 20% down. That doesn't mean you have to. I'd say most people don't. But your payment is going to be about 40% higher than where it would have been if you bought a couple years ago. However, knowing that information, we can't do anything about it, right? So as a buyer, you can't say, oh, I wish I would have capitalized then, or oh, well, maybe the rates will come down and home values will also come down, so then I can get a better deal in 3 years. And I think if you're going to be waiting this out and you're going to be trying to figure out and time the market based on where interest rates are or where home values may be, and you're speculating, I think you're going to be waiting for a long time. I don't think we're in a series where the market's just going to absolutely crash and you're going to go get a crazy good deal if you wait 6 months or if you wait a year. I think if you buy today, yes, of course, you are going to be buying in a high interest rate environment. Therefore, affordability changes, right? You may not be able to afford, your dream home, but at least get into the game, right? And I think this year, 2024 specifically, is going to be largely driven by first-time home buyers. And the reason is because for a lot of people that currently own homes and they're thinking about becoming a seller but also a buyer, they're a lot less incentivized to do so because of the trade up of their current home for their next home at a lot higher rate and a lot higher home value market, right? But for first-time home buyers, there's a ton of great reasons why somebody would want to opt to go from renting to owning, or maybe a lot of what we notice and a lot of the demographic that I happen to work with, which is young professionals between the ages of 25 and 40, let's call it. A lot of these people are going from that rent-to-own situation, or they're getting married, or they're having kids, and there's what I would call as kind of life events that are happening that cause them to need different housing needs along the way. And so when you're going to outgrow and have another kid and you're locked in a 2-bedroom, well, yeah, of course, you may be disappointed you have to trade up in that higher rate market. However, you're going to do what's best for your family. You're going to do what you have to do. And there's creative ways to lower your payments. I'll get into a couple of those here just so you can understand. But the moral of that story is, like, if you're going to wait for all of this to crash and for you to get a crazy good deal at a low interest rate, you might as well just write off buying a home, right? That's just not going to happen when you miss the boat. I missed the boat on that a lot, but we can't change the past. We have to operate with what's currently in front of us right now. And I would say specifically, if you're thinking about buying between November, December, and let's just say January in 2023, right here in Chicago, or I guess it would be January of 24, I think I like to refer to this time of the year, and especially right now heading into an election year, especially, my heart goes out to all the families that are impacted, lives that are being taken, hostages that are being taken and held hostage. All of these things I'm very sensitive to. I have a lot of friends that I would say are definitely more directly impacted by what's happening in the world right now. And so it's creating a lot of uncertainty, right? A lot of different factors are kind of wobbling back and forth, and none of us really know what 2024 is going to look like. But in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit of a more challenging year. So working with a realtor that is going to be able to allow you to see opportunities, to be able to negotiate on your behalf, get creative, really troubleshoot and be a problem solver is, I think, the market we're going to be in, the market that you need to make sure you have proper representation. But deal season is, I think, right now, right? It's the winter season in Chicago. If a property is on the market during the next 3 months, through the holidays, through the cold weather, that seller is probably pretty motivated. So if you're looking for a deal, and this kind of plays into the investment side of things, if you're an investor in today's market, it can be lucrative, right? You may be able to go make offers on properties right now that are naturally lower than maybe where you would offer in the past. But if you have somebody that really wants to sell their property, there's a better chance of us going out there and getting you a good deal. And if maybe it's not a price thing, but maybe we can get creative in how we actually approach our offer. And one thing I want to reference as kind of a resource or a thought to consider that I have a lot of buyers utilizing is what's called a 2-1 buy down. So basically, yes, you are buying at a current interest rate, but you're leveraging and you're negotiating with your agent a seller credit, so that seller credit, let's just say you're buying a property for $500,000. You may say, hey seller, I'm gonna give you $500,000, but I want a $15,000 seller credit. And so now you're basically saying, hey, my offer to you is a $485 net. You're gonna get $500,000 on paper, but I want you to give me the other 15 back as a seller credit. So now you can go as a buyer and work with your lender if you're financing, and you can use part of that to offset some of your closing costs, and you can also use part of that or all of it to buy down your interest rate. And a 2-1 buy down specifically means, let's just say, based on what we said, interest rates today are 7.7. If you were to lock in today, you were to close on that property, in year one, the first 12 months after owning that property, you'd pay 2% less than the market rate of what you locked in at. So in this example, you'd pay not 7.7%, you'd pay 5.7% for the first 12 years. That's where the 2 comes from in the 2-1 buy down. The 1, so after the first 12 months, your second 12 months are gonna be basically at 1% less than what the rate is when you lock. So that 7.7, year 2, you're actually gonna pay a 6.7. There's some risk with this, right? So it's not a perfect solution, but after 24 months, if you do not refinance during that time frame, then you basically, your rate adjusts to what current market rate is. So in 24 months from today, our rate's gonna be higher? Are they gonna be lower? We don't know, right? I tend to believe they're gonna be lower. I actually bought a property this year. I utilized the 2-1 buy down. And I think that I'm gonna be able to lock in for lower than what I actually bought the property for, but that's a risk I'm willing to take, and I understand not everyone can do that. But in general, that's gonna create more affordability for you, at least in the first couple of years. You can maybe save some more money, adjust to that larger payment over time. And that's kind of the market that we have to work in. So there's a lot of creative strategies, a lot of ways to go about finding a good deal that makes the most sense for you. But my last words of advice from a buyer standpoint is don't get caught up in purchase price. Get caught up in what you're gonna live in. You're gonna live in your monthly mortgage payment. So find a number that's comfortable for you. Let's back into it, making sure we're taking into consideration your principal, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, and your assessment for that property to make sure that we're staying within the confines of what is a comfortable mortgage payment for you. I recommend 25 to 30% of your total gross monthly income. No more than that should be going to your housing payment. That's what it is for buyers. I touched on investors, so we're not gonna get too much in the investor side. At large, just to touch on this so we can finalize this. I think if you are an investor, a couple of opportunities I see. Buy in the next 3 to 4 months, you're gonna get a better deal in the winter market. I think also the new Fannie Freddie guidelines that just came out with the 5% down conventional loan product, where you can now buy a 2 to 4 unit property with only 5% down. It used to be that you would have to, in our current market, for low down payment, owner occupant financing, you'd have to go the FHA route, which comes with it's not a terrible program, but being able to get something that's conventional is something I think is gonna open the doors for a lot of first-time investors, right? So if you're thinking about buying a 2 to 4 unit building, you're gonna house hack that building, which I know is a buzzword, but you're gonna live in one, you're gonna rent the others out. I think you're gonna have some opportunities in the next 12 to 18 months in order to do that, and to do that in a very affordable way, utilizing the low down payment program information. So if you have any questions about that, just feel free to send me a text to the number on the screen. Ask about, say, hey, I know you mentioned the 2 to 4 unit new program that Fannie and Freddie just released. Fannie Freddie basically controls, let's just say 50% of every home loan out there. And I'll get you the information you need. We can set up a call. We can talk about what that means for you. So lastly, we're gonna talk about sellers, and we're gonna finalize this video. If you're a seller in today's market, you are still in the more competitive advantage, right? Especially in the markets I work, the Lincoln Parks, the Lakeviews, the Bucktown, the Wicker Parks, still very strong markets, still low market time, right? So if you're listing a property, it's not sitting a crazy amount of time. If you're a seller more in the downtown market, let's just say it's, the more dense areas like a River North or a Streeterville, Gold Coast, you can expect longer days on market in a less advantageous market too. I would say those are gonna be a little bit more of a buyer's market versus when you're in the Lincoln Park, the Lakeviews, kind of the outskirts of the actual downtown city market. You're still gonna be in a seller's market around a 3 to 4 month supply of inventory. Some areas gonna be less than that, maybe even into the 2s, right? So I think right now, if you're gonna bring a product to the market, AKA your home, if you have a competitive price, and you're pricing based on other current active competition and not 12-month old data, right? That's one of the biggest tips I would give for sellers right now is when you're looking at home values and where you should price your property to sell, you can't be looking at what happened a year ago, because as we already talked about, data has changed pretty drastically. And so we need to look at what are the current competition in the market. So what are the active listings that are similar to yours? Let's price against those, right? Because you need to have seasonality, you need to have real-time data at your fingertips and not just rely on, oh, well, my neighbor a year ago sold for here, this is what I want. That market was different. We need to adjust for that, or we're gonna miss the market and you're gonna sit on the market and become a stale listing. That's the reality of it, right? But in general, if you have a good price, like I said, your condition is good, meaning there's not a ton of work you have to do to that property. Investors, that may be an opportunity for them to go and find something and add and force some appreciation. But I'd say the majority of buyers right now aren't trying to do work to their home. They want something move-in ready. And if you're in a good location, so price, condition, location. If you have those three things, you're in one of these markets I just discussed, you have a pretty good chance of selling, near your asking price, as long as you're not grossly overpriced, within 5% of that, and you're likely going to sell it within the first 30 to 60 days, right? And so this will change as we continue to navigate throughout the year. In 2024, I think we're going to get a lot of the same. You're going to get this high interest rate environment. I think is going to continue through all 2024. We may get a little relief after the 6-month portion, but then we go into election year. So any election year is always a little bit different. There's always more uncertainty in the market. So more than ever, I want to be here as a resource for anyone that watches this channel, for all of you that continue to come back and pay attention to my videos. I know most of them are not real estate related content, but this is what we do. This is what I do 24/7. The last 10 years of my life is I help people into homes, and I help them sell homes and build their wealth through real estate. So my team and I would be honored to help you with your real estate goals. If you have any questions whatsoever, whether you're 3 months out, like you're looking to do something today, or you're just wanting to plan and get ahead to be prepared for 2024, well, we'd love to have a conversation with you. So just feel free to text the number on the screen. And if you like this video and it brought you value, please just do us a favor, share it with a friend, like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you on the next video. All right, peace.